Today I'll be comparing two titles, Star Fox for the Nintendo 64 and the recently released First Squadron Phoenix. First off, I want to mention I hate light gun games, and I mention that because I think there's an important ingredient in Star Fox that separates it from these boring repetitive shooters that I avoid in arcades. Now, starting with First Squadron, the worst thing about it, the voiceover.
Daria chuai mil Daria chuai mil Haha lapin Belena grina Bainarina mine balena Nihi
I feel like if you have an option to mute voiceover, you probably know people are going to find it annoying. Maybe that's just my experience with First Squadron, that it was so painful to listen to. I feel like I would have been furious if it wasn't an option to turn it off. This audio is like nails on a chalkboard bad. I'm actually kind of surprised that they didn't hear this and think, we might have spent a lot of time developing this feature, but it's so rough, let's just leave it out of the game. I can't imagine someone in their right mind leaving this on, knowing that you can turn it off as a feature. I also don't care for the art style in First Squadron. I'm not an artist, so I can't perfectly describe what I don't like about it, but the character models just feel like waxy and plastic looking. The characters themselves are also really one-dimensional. There's the tough guy, and then there's your character. That has to be the most pathetic dork I've ever seen in a video game. This Robin is supposed to be a jet fighter pilot and feels like a first-year student at Hogwarts that keeps losing his toad. Now, in Star Fox 64, it also has a new crew of fresh recruits, but everyone feels established and capable. Nobody talks down to the main character Fox like he doesn't know how to fly a plane. Well, maybe Falco does on occasion.
Hey Einstein, I'm on your side!
Which gets me to the characters in Star Fox. I love my Italian bird frenemy Falco, and good old loyal Peppy is great, and who can't forget everyone's favorite gender-fluid coded amphibian, Slippy. They aren't the most profound characters in the world, but they have actual vocal performances, which gives them a level of depth that, when they're missing from combat because they're out of commission, you actually feel the absence of their presence. Onto gameplay. Everything in First Squadron just feels kinda two-dimensional. I always felt like, here's my ship, here's the enemy ships, and never shall the twain meet, which for me really kills the immersion of trying to feel like a fighter pilot. I don't feel like I'm flying around in 3D space. I feel like I'm at a carnival trying to shoot a bunch of rubber ducks with a water gun. Also, I really hated how spaced out everything was. I always felt like, okay, I just killed one wave of enemies, now wait a period of time, and next wave of enemies, and repeat. And even when obstacles popped up in the game, it would pause enemies so I could have to navigate through the obstacles, and then a new wave of enemies would show up. And it kind of felt like combat was a PowerPoint presentation, scrolling from one slide to the next, waiting for the next enemy to appear. Now, in Star Fox's gameplay, the world feels so dense. Not only is there always something to interact with, there's also usually a choice of what you want to interact with. Do I shoot at this enemy up in the left-hand corner of my screen, or do I dive down to the right to try to grab this golden ring? And you actually have to navigate in the world. One of my favorite moments is when Falco's getting shot at and he's way ahead of you. You actually have to boost because he's out of range, and then close the gap before you can shoot the enemies off his tail. First Squadron just never felt like it had any depth to it. I always felt like I was just floating in the middle of the screen waiting for the enemy to appear. It really kind of felt like a game for children. But in order to up the difficulty, they just give enemies more health bar and make them do more damage. Which is one of my least favorite parts of First Squadron, the level up your ship system. There's a store where you can just buy more damage for your weapons, buy more shields for your ship, and it felt like, oh, don't get better at the game, just grind until you can have enough money to buy the thing you need to beat the level. Which, as all of you know, is my favorite mechanic in a video game. And in Star Fox, yes, there's depth, but more importantly, there's agency. I can very clearly feel the skill ceiling. In First Squadron, I found myself thinking, well, if I could just up my damage, I would have killed that boss. In Star Fox, when I lost to a boss, I asked, well, how could I have done that differently? How could I have changed my strategy to have done better? Oh, and lastly, and most importantly, the music. First Squadron actually had some pretty decent music, but nothing really jumped out at me. The music for Star Fox, however... So yeah, this was a pretty aggressive split here. Star Fox mastered something a long time ago that this game doesn't even seem to scratch the surface of. I wonder if these developers even played Star Fox 64 or any game in the series after that. So in conclusion, don't play indie games. AAA is the future. Case closed.
Objection!
No, but I do feel bad because an indie game got dunked on in this case. So let me leave you with a Next Fest demo that piqued my interest. It's called Wild Blue Skies, and it honestly looks like more of a spiritual successor of Star Fox. I played the demo a few times, and it looks to be what I was hoping to get out of First Squadron. So I'll be taking a look at this one when the full game drops. As for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.